Getting started developing with Office 365 is as easy as 1, 2, 3. The first step is to know the types of code solutions you can build. SharePoint Online supports two strategies for custom code solutions. The first is a server-side solution known as the Sandbox Solutions Object Model. And the second is the client-side solution, which supports three different client object models: the .NET Managed Object Model, the Silverlight Object Model, and the ECMAScript or JavaScript Object Model. Step 2 is to understand how they work. Sandbox solutions run on the server, but they have access to a subset of the SharePoint Online Object Model. It begins when a designer creates a declarative or configuration-based SharePoint solution using SharePoint Designer. Or it can begin with a developer creating a solution with Visual Studio, packaging that solution by creating a WSP file, and then handing it off to a SharePoint Online administrator who takes that SharePoint solution file and uploads it to the solution gallery and then activates the solution as desired. For the developer, they're limited in the fact that their solutions are scoped to the SharePoint site collection and below, and they only have access to a subset of the Microsoft.SharePoint namespace. In addition, their code is only given partial trust, and they're subject to the code access security policy set up by their SharePoint Online administrator. Administrators are limited by the fact that you're required to have administrative access to upload solutions to a site collection. In addition, solutions consume resources and have quotas applied against them, and if a solution exceeds their quota, it's disabled. Client object models provide a consistent object model for .NET, Silverlight, and ECMAScript. Each of these object models are easier to use than the SharePoint web services. They are consistent with the server-side object model. In addition, they're smaller libraries, making them more efficient, and they're scoped to the site collection and lower. Unlike the server-side object model, they can call external services, like Windows Communication Foundation services, web services, REST, and OData. Whichever client object model you use, they all work in a similar fashion. Here we're showing a logical model of a Silverlight or a managed custom application that's calling a managed client object model. This object model calls a proxy class that serializes the commands into XML and sends an XML request via HTTP to the server side, where every client object model command has a corresponding server object model call. Once called, the server object model call returns a JSON response, which the client proxy class then associates the response with appropriate objects within the custom application. Step 3 is to set up your development system with Visual Studio 2010, an on-premise version of SharePoint 2010, and an Office 365 development account. First is Visual Studio, which enables you to develop things like custom SharePoint ribbons and custom SharePoint dialog boxes. Visual Studio provides the project templates, item templates, the debugging capabilities, the IntelliSense, and the solution packaging you need to build custom solutions. Once you have Visual Studio set up, you'll need a SharePoint 2010 on-premise server. You can do this in one of two ways. The first is to use Windows 7 or Windows Vista to install SharePoint. The only caveat is it'll have to be a 64-bit version of one of these two operating systems. Or, if you have another server sitting around, you can install Windows Server 2008 R2 and then install SharePoint Server 2010. Together, you'd use this system for debugging and testing your solutions. Then lastly is the Office 365 test account, where ultimately you would deploy your solution for production testing and deployment. These three steps form the foundation of Office 365 development knowledge. After taking these steps, you'll be well on your way to developing custom Office 365 solutions for your business.